Welcome back to the Charismatic Voice. Today I am joined by Jon Anderson, who I have to say, I've been shocked to see this incredible progression of your career through so many years. So I have so many questions that I want to ask, but thank you for taking time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have a question which is just traditional to start off our interviews with, which is, do you prefer coffee or tea?
I used to drink coffee like crazy to the point I would drink so much coffee just to get zonked. And then eventually my stomach said, no more, no more, no. So I stopped drinking coffee about 30 years ago.
Oh man, it's a long time without coffee.
No, I just drink tea, throat coat, tea, things like that. And that's all. And a glass of wine now and again. So,
That's good. Was that, I'm really excited to actually talk about some of the vocal challenges that have happened through your career and how you've overcome them, because you obviously really have. Was the switch to throat coat, was that any time around 2008?
yeah, I don't remember, to be honest. I just started drinking tea for the throat and throat coat, is basically what it is. And I just got used to drinking it, which is very nice.
It feels very nice on the throat. I agree. Well, let's rewind. Let's get a little bit of an idea of your life as a whole, and then I want to just dive into all, especially some of those vocal specifics. Talk about where your technique, how you established it, where challenges happened, how you overcame them, how you're still singing so well today. Because I did an analysis of one of your recent live performances. It's going to be released on this new album in March. And I was really, really shocked, actually. You're keeping your voice in just fantastic shape. So we have to talk about that. You've got some sort of secret.
Well, it's more or less a feeling that I better sing good tonight. I really hope I sing good tonight and I'd go on stage and then, oh, there it is. Thank you.
Still there. Right. Uh, I certainly responsibility to the audience helps.
Well,
But
yeah, you feel like they've come to hear you sing and it better be good,
mhm.
sort of thing. And that's the idea. As you know, you're a singer, so you have that feeling like now and again, are you going to be on top of it? Are you going to be with it, get it? And all of a sudden, the powers that be just come through, and there you are.
Yeah, yeah. Or sometimes you're at the end of a huge Mozart opera and you feel the voice is really just not gonna keep going as well as you want it to through that finale, and the conductor is merciful and speeds it up a little bit.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh
But
boy.
yeah, I remember singing a Constanza while I had a cold, and it was just brutal. Most of it was still pretty good. It was in my body, but you've sung when you were sick before. It's just there's a ton of pressure, and it's really difficult to make it through.
Well, you just keep believing in the higher energies that surround you as a singer, and just know that they're not going to let you down if you just open up. I've started actually hearing above my head just a couple
Oh,
of years ago.
where it
So
feels like you've got overtones kind of coming out from
I
here.
don't know. It feels like when I go for a big high note, if what at the end of a song or something like that, I stop worrying about it and just think about it as it's just above my head. So it's
Oh,
okay.
it's like the
It's
placement of the sound. Just if it gets there, it's in the sweet spot.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That reminds me of high C's, because there's, gosh, there's so many different teachers teach, I think, related to placement of the voice where you feel like, oh, it's in the right spot if it feels like it's buzzing behind my eyes or if it's in my cheekbones. For me, when I had my high C, especially just banging, it always felt like
Wow.
it was coming out the crown of my head.
Wow. I actually remember years and years ago in a concert, and then there was an opera singer going on next, and she in a note just before she went on stage. I went, "Oh my God, what the hell was that?" It's just so powerful. It's like,
Yeah.
woohoo!
Yeah, opera is powerful. It has its own set of challenges, like any other genre. I think when you're at the top of it, they all present challenges, which is exciting because you get to grow to achieve them.
There's a lot of fingers crossed and hope.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if I've done my background research correct, I saw that you were really planning to do football, not singing, right? Football was a thing, and that was around 15. You were planning to do that. When I read football, I think American football, but you were based in England at the time, and the text never specified which kind of football it was. So are we talking American football or
No,
soccer?
English football where everybody keeps moving. My problem with American football initially was 30 years ago when I met my wife, and as she said, "Do you like American football?" I said, "Well, they keep stopping. Why do they keep stopping and then getting a row and things?" I had no
Yeah.
idea why, you know. But English football is a constant flow of running, passing, whatever.
Yeah.
And as a kid, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a soccer player. And it's interesting that my mum and dad, they call me John Roy Anderson. And
Hmm.
John Roy was a famous, as you would say, a theater guy in the 40s that would make up songs to people. He called himself John Roy, the Melody Boy.
Huh.
I've never spoke about it before, but I thought I may as well explain that. So in some ways, to me, melodies just come like that, and it's just probably a few years ago that I started to realize it's a natural event in my life to be able to do melodic things and sing melodies with the band and come up with ideas sing ideas to the band, and that's what I did with Yes. Sort of direct them in a sort of this way and that way. Let's go this way, and I was listening to Stravinsky at the time, and then eventually studying Sibelius music, which I love eternally. Sibelius is my musical god, actually.
It's a very, very romantic. I especially love some of the piano, Sibelius
Yep,
piano. It's very nice. And oh, that's fascinating. Stravinsky, because sometimes Stravinsky has glorious melodies, and then sometimes they feel very chopped up, kind of depending on where he is in his progression. Gosh, are you familiar with the Rake's Progress?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my earliest operas that I did actually. I did my studies at Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia and sang "And True Love" when we did the Rake's Progress there. And I still remember in the last act, there's this like beautiful melody, like a lullaby that she sings that is just so stunning, and it feels like time suddenly like doesn't exist.
True.
Right, but then you have all of these other things in Stravinsky where these melodies are kind of a little crazy. I wonder if that contributed to your ability to write melodies for progressive rock.
Well, I think more or less I grew up with the Beatles in the 60s, you know, and then into the Beach Boys, and then I started to listen to a lot of American music, old country music and classic cowboy music, if you like. You know, I used to love
Mhm.
all those melodies and stuff like that. And you grow up with that. And then when it comes to surviving in rock and roll and just keeping going, you have a group of musicians that are happy to play for music with you, you know. And that's when we started the band Yes. And I was coming up with ideas that were what I'd listened to that morning around breakfast. I was listening to something on the headphones. And I thought, that's what we should be doing. So I go in there and start telling them what to do. And of course, sometimes they're just saying, oh, Anderson, you're a bloody nuisance. Why do you want to do this? Well, if we do that, we could go to that. And then if we do that, we can always repeat that because that's what Sibelius does. Or something like what Stravinsky does, you know.
Bringing it
And you
all
just,
together.
you just John, well, I was the smallest guy in the band, so they called me Napoleon.
Aw.
Just the way it is, you know. Okay. But it worked. It surprised me when it worked. But, and I carried on just jiving and scat singing, and that's what I do naturally, is to work with musicians and know that their potential is to open them up a little bit and say, well, you play me something and I'll sing. And generally they'll play something and I'll start singing an idea, and then I'll stop and say, well, why don't we just now go to that first chord was a great chord, go back to that, and da-da-da-da. And I get into musical connotations without knowing what I'm talking about. Just basically, you know, I don't know, I can't read music for one thing, you know, but yeah, I've survived without having that, but I'm okay.
And your brother, the first band you started was with your brother, right? And were
Yeah.
both of you singing? Is that right?
Well, Tony and me worked on a local farm, so we'd sing Everly Brothers songs. I sang a higher harmony to him, and then because he was the good-looking guy, and I was the little guy with the whatever, and so he started. He had a band, and he said, "Okay, do you want to join the band, John?" I said, "Yeah, let me give it a whirl. We can do Everly Brothers. We know them, so we have 4 songs." And then he started singing Elvis Presley songs, so I started singing Roy Orbison songs, which is Roy Orbison, a sort of an alto tenor, you know, sort of sound. I'm not going to start
Voice
singing. But that's basically what pushed me in that direction of singing higher than the norm, you know, singing. I don't know why it is, but it just happened to work for me with my brother. So for that first couple of years we were in a band together, we started to survive without having to work on a farm.
I have to ask, what kind of farm were you working on?
There's cows, a lot of cows, and you know, and there was chickens as well. You got eggs, milk, and that's what you delivered around town. You know.
Yeah, I grew up on an orchard, which most people still call a farm, but
Beautiful orchard. Oh my gosh, yeah.
yeah, and so I'm really familiar with farm work,
Oh yeah,
and I actually really liked having
yeah.
that childhood. So
Very healthy, you know.
yeah, it was very healthy, and I sing a lot on the orchard. I think something about working in an orchard inspires people to sing. People,
Yeah, well,
right? You're out there in the middle of all these trees. There are birds. You're gonna sing along.
yeah. I started years later in my life. I started hugging trees.
Oh,
I read a book about the finding of the third eye.
oh,
A little lady in England, in London, her name is Vera Stanley Alder. And it's about learning to meditate and concentrate on your third eye and stuff. And there was a part that said, and go and hug a tree. So I read the book and said, oh, okay, I'll try hugging a tree. And every time you hug a tree, you yawn.
really?
Yeah, oh yeah. And you hug a tree, and there are obviously many different kinds of trees, but generally speaking, if you go in a sort of a woodland, there's always a major tree that connects with all the other trees. And if you go and hug that, you'll get a very deep connection with divine energy, which I used to start doing that quite a lot.
I appreciate that. I feel like trees can use some more appreciation in general. So,
Yeah,
good.
well, it's a lot to do with things we don't see, which are surprisingly, as you may know about, that there are Devic world, they call it the elves and fairies and various other but they're very invisible to humans, but they're around, you know. And so I started studying that, reading a book about it. Vera Stanley Alder's husband wrote a beautiful book about the fairy kingdom. I know it's a far cry from rock and roll music, but it really isn't. It's the music of the spheres of the energy that surrounds us all is ginormous and never ending.
And actually, one of the things that originally drew me into metal, because up until 5 years ago, I'd never been interested really in rock or metal. That my journey has been discovering this for the first time in the last 5 years on YouTube. But one of the things that I found particularly fascinating is when you have people like Dio that are making these grand, fantastic, and magical stories. I found my nerd side that loves reading Lord of the Rings, for example, was
Yeah.
very satisfied by some of the stories found in rock and metal.
Oh gosh, yeah. I can't believe that every now and again I think that to live in a world where Lord of the Rings became a movie is remarkable. And so the young people that have grown up through that, to understand that we're surrounded by mystical things, as I would put it.
And let's look at like how that has affected your voice, because I think a lot of times when people think about singing, they think like, oh, a person has it or they don't, but it's sure talent plays a role, but I feel that when you have a very long, successful career, there are many times when you could choose to not continue that career when something came up and you say, oh, nope, I'm done. But there are different things that we find to sustain us. And it sounds like your faith essentially has sustained you in a lot of moments. Can you talk about maybe a couple of different big challenges? I would love at some point to dive into the asthma and the respiratory failure that I'd read
Yeah,
about in 2008.
yeah.
But feel free to go wherever you would like to go first.
Well, the one thing that happened, which is not too long ago, is I was on tour with YES at that time, and then I got sick for about 3 months, and it wasn't fun at all. I really got very ill, and my wife saved my life because I stopped breathing, and spent 3 months being looked at by surgeons and whatever, and eventually came out of it that I was okay. I could sing again, and I didn't think about it too much, but I thought I gotta be able to sing. And the band, funny thing is that they decided to find another singer, and so they found a guy from Canada to go and sing like me, sort of thing. And I just went, okay, then I've been playing my guitar for a long time now. I'm going to go on tour with me and my wife and a guitar, and we're going to travel around the world. And I'll be singing all the songs that I helped to write with YES, and I'll have a great time. And I won't have to deal with managers and agents and stuff. So me and my wife had 5 years and more of just going out there, me doing solo shows in small places, in little tiny little clubs. I even did a show in Brazil it was a make and bake place. They were serving food at the same time, and I was doing a show, but it was beautiful because I was really independent,
Yeah.
and I could and I did a lot of singing without the guitar. I just stand there and sing ideas, and I think it woke me up a little bit. O'er the green mountains and o'er the green valleys, I've walked through the country and felt me an age. People so strong, needing peace for so long, the homelands of Ireland. Thank you and good night. After a while, I started working with musicians via the internet because the internet's only been around for 20 years of zooming each other and getting around. I just thought the idea of working with people around the world, I just say, I put an advert on my website saying, musicians wanted, send me 1 minute of your music and I'll get back to you. So I got hundreds of little 1 minute pieces of
Uh-huh.
music from people in Australia and Sweden, France and Germany, everywhere. And I just sing on them and send them back,
Hmm,
sing
that's
an idea
cool.
because melody was easy, and just and lyrically, what tends to happen is as I sing something, there's a lyrical content going on at the same time that I'm not so aware of it, but I just naturally let it happen.
Mhm.
So I will sing and then listen back and think what I'm trying to sing and write it down.
Mhm.
And that's the way it works.
And just tumbles
I don't
out.
know why I'm got to get into that one, but that's the whole procession of events that made me want to do right. I actually wrote a rap opera. I did.
I'd say I read a lot of things about you, but I did not see that one. A rap opera?
Yeah, it's based on the Antigone, which is
Oh.
famous story of a king who had two sons and so on. And it still hasn't been. I've actually got all the music here in my studio, but I listen to it now and again. I still think one day I'll make it into a real opera
Hmm.
because it's very funny and very dark and very frightening at times, but a little bit of fun in there helps. So I'm sort of very maybe I've got about 5 or 6 other projects sitting around, and to do theater isn't something I want to do per se personally, but I actually would write something like years and years ago. 40 years ago, would you believe, I was living in the south of France and I was actually learning to play piano and keyboards and things. And I met this guy who was a bass player from the Rolling Stones.
Huh.
And he, really nice guy, but he was very funny. He was actually very funny. Bill Wyman. And he said to me, "Hi, John, how are you doing?" Because we were in this small little village. I said, "Oh, how you doing, Bill? How's it? All right, yeah." Da, da, da. He said, "Why don't you come tonight? We're going to a special birthday party for Marc Chagall. Would you like to meet him?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't know who he is, but yeah, I'll meet him." He said, "How old is he?" He said, "Oh, he's 90."
Oh.
I said, "Okay." So I went along with Bill, and Bill made me laugh all the time, just the way it was. And we were in this a beautiful restaurant with about 50 people, and I didn't know who Chagall was, but I kept seeing this very not a tall guy, not a small guy, but and I thought that's him, that's Marc Chagall. So I'll go over and say hello, so because it's his birthday. And I went over and said, "Hello, my name's John. How are you? Happy birthday!" And I gave him a hug, And he said to me, "Why don't you come to my house the weekend?" Yes. I said, "Oh, okay." Not knowing what I was going to get into, but
Mhm.
I went to his house, and all his paintings were full. His house was full of paintings that he created, and I couldn't believe how incredibly good he was, and his use of color and everything. And I just liked him a lot. And he said, "You come back next week?" I said, "Yeah, I'll bring my guitar." So I
Mm.
already wrote 2 songs about his life already. And he said, "John, what are you doing with these songs?" I said, "Well, I'm going to write a musical about you, about your life." And he said, "Really? Well, musicals take time." I said, "No, I'll get it done this year." May as well get it done because I was in a studio and I had a first deal with a record company in London. It's a famous record company. I can't remember the name of it, but they said, "We'll give you some money to make the record of this guy Chagall." Okay, I said, "Thank you, but if we don't like it, you got to give the money back." I said, "Okay," not thinking, 'cause I was there in the south of France in this beautiful chateau with a beautiful studio, and I rented a horse every day to go riding, and I just started writing these songs about the life of Marc Chagall, and it just worked out that the guy who was running the studio was a famous jazz pianist and a very good producer. So he started writing music with me, and it just happened. Things happened, and that's 40 years ago. 40 years ago, and I remember what he said to me. Chagall, he said, "John, this musical," and he always touches his nose. "This musical you're talking about. When do you finish it?" I said, "This year." Oh, but maybe I might not be around when it's finished. I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Would you prepare a seat for me in the front row, please?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." Why not? So time went along, and I still carried on making songs for him for the idea of his life. I read his book of his life, and I went, "Oh my gosh, this guy knew Stravinsky. This guy knew Nijinsky." It's like, wait a minute, this guy actually knew a lot of really interesting Picasso. He's a good friend of Picasso.
Oh.
And so I wrote a story and everything. I've got the book here. And we're going into production sometime in the coming years when they find $5 million.
1 year and then goes
Yeah.
by 40 years later.
But if the songs still sound good, to me anyway. Most people that have heard the songs really like them.
I need to know if I'm secure, as all my plans go from the dark and need for light, and I so young to know my life. We speak of love, never felt such as the moon. My feet don't even touch the then all at once, one on one with I only care far from me, to be my friend, my dreams begin with you. Guide. I need the stars, I need the sun. We walk the earth, we climb the stars, to fly to the sun.
We actually did a rendition of the show in San Francisco, in a beautiful theater there. And we just did a tryout, if you like, And it was good. It was very good. That was
Nice.
a couple of years ago.
It's a
So
good
in
place
the
to test out things.
sorry,
It's a good place to test out things. There have been a lot of successful
yeah, it was a
productions
school.
that have been tested there.
Yeah, it was it worked out very, very good. In fact, one of the great things was the projection of Chagall's art on big screens behind the people that were telling the story. That was the best part, the projection of Chagall.
I think it's amazing how technology has really influenced performances and things like a projection can
Oh yeah,
everything and make it so much more deep and really touching. And I really want to ask your perspective on a few ideas about technology. One, do you feel that there's been any technological advancement that really hinders an artist today?
oh boy. Well, sorry, you got me. You got me at the wrong time. I just spent the last week or so trying to decide why, or trying to discover why I don't remember things.
Oh,
Because you get to a certain age where you forget, you're walking around in the house and you're going, why am I in this room?
you go through a
what am I
doorway and
supposed
you
to
can't
get?
remember why.
Exactly. And that is, so I've actually been reading books about it and taking pills. So I'll see what
I
happens. But
am pregnant right now, and one of the big things that happens during pregnancy is your brain matter. There's actually a certain type that shrinks.
Oh yeah. So are
It's so
you
frustrating.
had a baby now? Or you're having a
Yeah,
baby?
I've got a 2.5-year-old and another one. I'm 6 months along right now. So
Wonderful,
yeah.
bravissimo,
Well, thank you.
bravissimo. No,
But
really.
I really I get so frustrated by how certain things will just float away. I won't
I
feel as sharp
know.
on any given day, and also when you're pregnant, you're very limited in what you're allowed to do or take. So
True.
those
Very
things that you're
true.
taking are probably not things I can take right now. Right? Oh, but I'm curious. So you're taking some things to help with your memory. This is the first time you've done this? You're 80, and this is the first time you've done this?
Yeah, it just happened that I think a week after I became 80, I started forgetting stuff. And I
One of
came,
my questions was going to be, how have you stayed sharp for so long? And the answer is, it's just natural.
yeah, you have to wait and see what happens because I went on tour just this last year and I came off the tour and I came into my studio and looked at my screen and looked at my and thought, how does it work? I can't remember how it works. How do I get into the computer and do what I do with it? And it's taken the last 3 months for me to remember things that were just natural, just like
Mhm.
that. And so it's a slow process of regaining some memory,
Mhm.
get the memory cells working, bang my head 3 times. So
Shake it
they,
up a little.
yeah. And would you believe that the computer being see, you have to start thinking that everything is from under the ground.
Or
Everything.
flying.
No, everything, furniture, da da da. Da. Well, everything's from under the ground, and anything, even yourself, from under the ground. But everything is from under the ground, so you have to understand that there's a certain element of energy within a computer that actually is popping up as AI now. But I started thinking about the computer years ago that it was like it's touch and go. Don't shout at the computer. Don't get angry with the computer. Be nice with the computer, and it will work for you.
And obviously, one of the big shifts that's been more recent is we have a lot more going on social media, and people are all at once more connected and more lonely at the same time because sometimes the connection
Yeah,
is a little
very
false.
true.
I'd read that you actually, I think because of when you were raising your kids, you were able to essentially insulate them a little bit from what you were doing. They had a sort of a more normal childhood, right? And I think, am I correct in saying that they didn't understand your fame until they went to college?
True. I wasn't a great dad. I wasn't a good father because I was busy being a rock and roll guy, not thinking about anything else. The kids, I couldn't believe them. I still never believe how beautiful they are. And I'm just so, blessed. I have grandchildren now. And
Yeah.
just to me, it's a miracle that they all survived.
Well, if you were raising them today and social media was in the picture, would you try to isolate them in a similar way, or is that even possible? What would you do now?
No, I don't think it was a natural thing to do to isolate the children from anything. They actually went to special schools that were well known in England, and then there was a certain point in time where you'll find out that your children are organized, and you've just got to let them get on with it, because that's what we went through when we were kids. We ran around, played around, eventually became who we are, and that was God blessing us with enlightenment within that want to make good things happen in your life, and all of a sudden they do.
Excellent. And all three of your kids are they working in the music industry at this point?
Well, my eldest daughter, she makes beautiful movies. She spent 3 years with Native American people and filming them and the hardship they go through and the emotions they go through. We understand Native American culture. We don't know anything about seriously. We Indigenous people, I always say this and it's silly, but we're all Indigenous people from way back, from way back. And the Indigenous people of America, we need to ask them for forgiveness, and it's not going to happen in this period of time. But it happened in Australia 7 years ago when they asked for forgiveness for the way they treated the Indigenous people of Australia. And only I think 3 or 4 years ago, Canada did the same thing. But the idea of that is that because we are all Indigenous people from way back, that we should learn that is the next step to enlightenment, is to forgive, ask for forgiveness to our brothers and sisters. And that my daughter, she created this movie about what this tribe is going through and everything, and very powerful information and discussions she had with them, and it made her a better human being. So that's what happens with your children. If things are meant to be, my son, he loves painting houses. He loves just being a free thinker, but a beautiful musician. And my youngest daughter, Jade, has three most wonderful children, boys, 3 boys. And I was with them just 3 weeks ago. And to me, it's very hard to keep them in control of them, because they're, I think they're 7, 9, 11.
Oh
They've just
boy.
got they've got the world going on right in front of them and everything.
Oh yeah.
And you have to as you will find, you just have to love them for who they are. And that's one of the great things in life, is watching your children grow up and actually become very extraordinary.
That is one of the reasons why I didn't want to go back out on the road. I wanted to settle down so I could well, so I can nurture more relationships and potentially start a family. And
Good for you. Good. No, really.
I really love it. I'm really surprised because singing opera and traveling for, over a decade was wonderful and amazing. I loved the adventure of it. But then getting to settle down and really do a lot more at-home recording as well, and then have this opportunity to start exploring other genres in a way I never expected, at the same time as getting to have balance in my life finally, of having just healthy relationships and kiddos soon to watch grow up. It's so beautiful. It's so fulfilling and wonderful.
Yeah.
It's really just sort of a dream. I feel surprised sometimes how lucky I am. But so you've got 3 kids, all creative in some way, and they're raising. You've got your grandkiddos now too, and I just keep thinking back to this idea you even mentioned before. At one point, when you were touring, you didn't have the internet. And the idea of not being able to call home to your kids. I guess you could call on the phone, but you had very limited time whenever you would be able to call, right?
Yeah, I think that there are times when I do say to them, "I'm sorry I wasn't there when you were 10. I was on the road."
Yeah.
Then they come and see me do a show and they go, "Dad, you're really good. We love you.
Aww.
Don't worry, don't worry about the past. Everything's good." I said, "Thank you."
I
I
love
feel
that they
very,
support you in
very
that.
blessed. Very
Yeah,
blessed.
it's super wonderful. Let's talk a little bit more about how the voice, like how your voice has shifted through the years. I've looked at a few different eras of your singing, your performance now, and most recently I was struck your high notes in general, the higher register just seems to have really stayed pretty strong. And of course, you had this big scare in 2008 with the respiratory function just stopping. And then I understand that you went through some sort of voice therapy to really work on getting those. Did you particularly struggle with breath pressure or being able to even phonate on those higher pitches when you were first coming back?
I think so. I was just starting to do it then. The higher breathing through the nose higher, and as you sing, breathing. I just naturally can hit a note, and like I won't do it too near the microphone, but ah, anytime. Like you can do a top
Easy for
C.
you.
You know.
Not anytime, John. No, not anytime.
Well, you know, but basically you try to in retrospect, when I'm singing a piece of music, shall we say, close to the edge, which was written in the mid 70s, and it was the first long form piece of music that I was involved in creating. And it was a magical experience, mystical at the same time. And then when you go on the road and sing it 10 years later and 10 years after that with a full choir and orchestra and things like that, you think this music was meant for me to sing the way I've got to sing, and it's not easy. A season which could call you from the depths of your disgrace. That's the opening stanza, you know. I can't start singing it now. But the whole concept of making music rather than pop music, because I was never anti-pop music, because I was brought up on it, the Beatles, of course, and the Rolling Stones and things like that. But when I started with Yes, I just felt this urge to do long form pieces of music. And it took a couple of years to get the band into it, and then to recording. Well, how long is this going to carry on for, John? Well, we'll do that verse and then the bridge, and then we'll go back to the intro, and then we'll just go into silent sounds. Well, how do you do silence? And I said, well, you just make sound like the ocean or the wind and the nature of sound, and like this. And the brick or keyboard player would play a sound. I said, yeah, that's it. We're just going to be there for about a minute, and then this song will come. And I said, Steve, have you got any chords for the song? And he started playing the chords, and I started singing, I get up, I get down, 2 million people barely satisfied, 200 women watch one woman cry, too late. The eyes of honesty can achieve, and so on. And so I'm singing this interesting melodic thing on his chords that he played. And so we said, okay, now we've done the middle section, we'll go back to the very beginning of the piece of music. Let's do it there. And then a keyboard solo. And they'd say, are you writing this down? No. But I think that's where we can go. And then the following day, Steve, the guitar player, came and said, I remembered why I wrote those chords, because I've got a song. And he started singing the song, and I started singing my song together. And it worked perfectly. That's how, out of the blue things happen. So now I'm going to be on tour in a couple of months, and I'm still singing Close to the Edge.
Crossing line around the changes of the summer, reaching out to call the color of the sky. Passed around a moment, clothed in mornings faster than we see. Getting over all the time I had to worry, leaving all the changes far from far behind. We relieve the tension only to find out the master's name. Down at the end, round by the corner.
You feel like it's just always been there for your voice. You never really had to struggle at any point to get back any particular high note.
No, it just comes and I sing. I'm doing it every day now just to practice. And I really feel fantastic that music that was written 40 years ago in the 70s still has got a kind of musical imprint and a lyrical content that actually still works. You know,
It's a mark of a good song and a good songwriter.
yeah. You don't think you're going to write something that's going to last 2 years, you know, and then 3 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, you're still doing the music. And think, wow, what a life! Thank you very much.
Right?
Thank you.
Fantastic. And you've worked with so many different people over the years. I think most recently, it looks like I think I've seen you doing more work with the Band Geeks. You even released a different album with them last November, if I'm correct. You mentioned in another interview that you felt like you'd really found amazing colleagues within them, and I wanted to know, what do you think makes a great colleague?
A great what? Sorry.
A great colleague, a great partner in making music, if you will.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, first of all, somebody sent me a video of them performing a Yes song called Heart of the Sunrise,
Okay.
which starts out very powerful music and then a very, very simple song, and then powerful music, simple song.
Long last treatment of the telling that relates to all the words sung. Dreamer easy in the chair that really fits you.
I couldn't believe how good they were. And these are guys who live in New Jersey, you know, and they just happen to be Yes fans, you know. So I just called up the bass player, I got his number, and said, "Hi, Richie, you guys are amazing, okay? Do you want to go on the road and do some shows?" "Yes, I am Jon Anderson, sorry." You know, I got to drink a little water, sorry.
Oh, good. No. I'm sipping at my tea like crazy. I've got so much acid reflux from being pregnant right now. It's just tea, water, all of the things that help us.
All helps. Little kid there you have. Oh, little.
I know I sent some tea. Usually I try to get the tea there before we do our interview, but I think it's just taken a while. So at some point, hopefully within the next few days or next week at most, you'll have some tea from a tea company that I really like. So maybe you'll enjoy it as much as your throat coat. Maybe not, but it'll arrive, and I hope it's enjoyable.
It will be. It will be.
Good. So obviously you really like working with the Band Geeks, and you've worked with so many different people. Other than just being an excellent musician, do you feel like there are certain personal qualities that make a great colleague, like being organized, for example, or being kind or supportive? Or maybe some people will say the flip, they like just having somebody who's really honest to bounce ideas off of. What do you like?
Every word you just said.
Oh, all of them.
Honest, kind, you know, really good people. The Band Geeks are just very sweet, very, very like headgear to make sure it's going to be right. They want it to sound exactly the same as Yes record. And I went to rehearsal with them and went, these guys are just incredible. Thank you, whoever's in charge. Thank you so much. And then, we did a short tour, and it was just magic for me, exhilarating, and just, oh boy, towards the end, I said, Richie, we should make an album. And he said, are you sure? I said, yes,
Are you sure?
I'm sure. I really am. So I sent him some ideas, and he sent me some ideas, and within 3 months we made an album, which we're
Phew.
gonna go out on tour and sing some of that in 2 months, and I'm still
Yeah.
practicing.
Still practicing it. That's funny. I love the "Are you sure?" response. Partly
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
that was what my husband, when he was proposing to me, he said, "Will you marry?" He'd gotten down on one knee and asked me if I'd marry him, and I said yes. And he said, "Are you sure?"
Right
Yes.
on. Good. Well done, though. Very well. Very well done.
It's always a funny question when it's like, "This is an awesome, amazing thing." Of course,
I know. I love it. I love it. When I met my wife, she came to a house I was renting in Hollywood. I was writing music about the Central American Native Americans, and this guy who wrote really great books about interdimensional activity, shall we call it. And then I was introduced to this lady who worked with Ron Howard, who makes movies, and
Oh,
we were
he did
looking for
Willow,
some.
right?
Pardon?
Didn't he do Willow?
Oh yeah, oh
It's one of
yeah,
my favorite movies.
yeah,
I love
brilliant
Willow.
movie. No, it's
Yeah,
brilliant. And
really. Uh-huh.
the beautiful thing to me was, as soon as she walked through the door, I knew who she was because I'd seen her in my meditation. By then, I was meditating very strongly over the 2 or 3 4 year period. And then she walked in, and I said, I didn't say it physically, I just shook her hand and said, I love you, we're going to get married, how are you? But I
Wow,
just my mind was saying that.
what an introduction. Oh, it was just in your mind. You didn't actually say that out loud.
No,
Oh, you not until how much later did you say
probably
this?
a good month or two.
Oh,
And
just a month.
then probably,
Good. Well, I have several questions over here from some patrons and a couple more of my own. Um, I love this. GeoZ Collector said, I'd love to know your thoughts on singing with King Crimson on the 1970 Lizard album.
oh yeah, well,
What a callback, right?
right. At that moment in time, mid 70s, me and Chris Squire had developed into this band, Yes, made it into Yes sounding and everything. And we heard about the King Crimson band. We're going to play it in a club in London that we all knew. So we went to see them. And it was like a blast of energy that I was standing there just with Chris, I'm nudging him, saying, what the hell, these guys are doing incredible. What the... Listen to them. And we listened to them, and they played their whole album in that show. And I went up to, I'm sure his name is, I'll probably get it wrong, one of the guys, and he said hello, and we shook hands and everything. And then about a month later, he called me up and said, would you like to sing a song on our album? And I said, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, thank you, thank you.
Wake your reasons hollow void, where your blizzard season cold. Burn a bridge and burn a boat. Stake a lizard by the throat.
It was interesting that Prince Rupert was the song, And when I was a kid, I went to school and I'd go to a bridge where the railway went under. And every Wednesday, a namer would come, which was a steam engine, which would have a name, some of very interesting names. And one of them, every other Wednesday, was Prince Rupert. It was a beautiful green steam train. Hard to explain how beautiful it was. And I'd go on running there and watch it go past like that. And then I'd write it down in my book. I saw it again, Prince Rupert. And all of a sudden I'm singing Prince Rupert for Bob Fripp and the King Crimson album.
That's fun. It's one of those moments where you go, huh, things really
Hey,
worked out well there.
yeah.
That's awesome. And see, Andrew Warwick said, I loved your work with Vangelis, Heaven and Hell in 75. What brought you and Vangelis together in the first place?
Well, Vangelis stories,
Is it Vangelis? I always have said Vangelis.
don't worry, don't worry. Don't worry,
Vangelis. Okay.
don't worry.
How I move. Chance would have me glance at you to know how you move me. All barriers fall around us as we heal. All memories known and matters long ago. So
I became so friends with Vangelis. He lived in Paris. And I had his record and I got his phone number. I called him up and said, hi, hello. Yeah, Vangelis. Yes. My name is Jon Anderson. I'm here in Paris. I'd love to come and see you. Sorry, my name is Jon Anderson. I'm in a band called YES. I don't know YES. What do you want? I said, I'm a singer. Oh, come over, Johnny. So I went around to his apartment, which was around the corner from the Arc de Triomphe in Paris there. And he opened the door and he stands there with a kaftan to the floor and a big bow and arrow and quiver with, you know, hey, Johnny, come on in, watch this. And he had a very long hallway, and at the bottom of the hallway was a target and a bullseye. And right next to the bullseye was a man watching TV.
Oh my gosh.
And he lets go of the arrow and it goes right through the window. I said, you could have killed your dad. Is that your dad? He said, yes, it's my dad. So I just noticed that he had cassettes everywhere around his piano. And he said, come on, let's I play you some music. And he starts playing the music and he had not very thin fingers, chubby fingers, you might say. And he played extraordinary music. And he just, for an hour, just carried on playing. And like a symphony, every 10 minutes, a piece of music. And it just kind of blew my mind.
Wow, yeah.
So I asked him, would he like to come to London? And our keyboard player with YES had left to become a superstar of his own right, Rick Wakeman. And I was looking for somebody to join the band. And I thought, Vangelis is perfect. He's perfect. Anyway, he came to London and we got all the band together. And we're sort of, we haven't played yet, but he's introducing himself and Steve's got his guitar, electric guitar, you see. And Vangelis says to Steve, you know, electric guitar, not a real instrument, you know. Vangelis, we're trying to make friends here. Please, let's be friends. But it didn't work out. So he got a studio in London and I would go in the studio and naturally I walked in, he was doing some music, I started singing. So we made an album in 2 weeks. You know, just me walking in at the right time to sing a song, write a lyric, da 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 da, and he'd do the production. And I thought, gosh, I'm in heaven here. It's an extraordinary feeling working with somebody so magical.
To get the feeling all in all. Just to get the feeling. Holding you closer in my arms, we touch heaven, bringing in the morning light. And after all is said and done, there's only us, we can make it right. So our love will carry on and on. Now our love will be free, be free.
I just feel that one of the common things that I hear coming up is how quickly you write music. People will spend several months on one song and you're like, oh, I've got an entire album in 2 weeks. It's just
Oh
really
gosh, yeah.
impressive.
Well, I'm fortunate that I have a constant joy in singing, and then realizing I'm singing something that I hadn't thought about. I better write it down and get the lyric correct, and then I'll re-sing it. But more or less, I do have maybe 100 cassettes that I daren't listen to because I know I've got songs in there, other songs, another song, another song, another song. And now that I'm in the twilight of my years, I've got a cassette machine here. Da 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 da. That's another song.
Someday somebody's gonna have the incredible privilege after all of us are gone, they'll come upon these cassettes of ideas that never got refined and published enough, and then it'll just expand and you'll have all kinds of people that reiterate on different ways you could do these ideas, and you'll have this explosion of music that just came from your brain.
Thank you very much.
I think it's really incredible. I do think that I think that a lot of people will study for years and years and years how to write a melody, but some people just are born with that ability, and it sounds like it's something that you were born with and were given more than that, the ability to always have new melodies. It's beautiful.
True.
All right, we have another question here from Digibirder. This has some background first, though. He says, you are a pioneer of what came to be known as progressive music. I believe the key to that style has been your willingness to explore all possibilities the muse presents you. Your art has progressed and evolved throughout your life, and that is the key to your vitality, I believe. How have the ways you express yourself evolved to make you the artist you are today? So the question again, one more time. How have the ways you express yourself evolved to make you the artist that you are today?
Take a deep breath and just go for it, whatever you're thinking at the time. I do happen to have so many ideas that I'd like to fulfill in the coming years. So I've just got to wait for the music to come through at the right time. And I just feel there is so much, as you know, there is so much music out there. It's extraordinary. The way that music can come into your life. Just yesterday I was listening and watching something, and the music was just perfect. It was Peruvian music. And my daughter had just been to Peru, and I thought, what I should do is maybe I should do some Latin American, not Latin American music, more Peruvian style music. And then I remembered, yes, I actually did an album where I sang in Portuguese and Spanish. It's called Deseo, and it's not very good. But I went on tour singing these songs with a band of musicians that I met in Los Angeles. And there's actually some good recordings of it on YouTube, live in Costa Rica, where my daughter's living at the moment, and live in Peru. And I'm playing an instrument like a saxophone, the electronic saxophone, because I have musicians around me making very, very good music. So I thought, I want to be a musician. I want to play the saxophone, and I'm looking for it now. It's not around. It's run away.
I love that with a lot of songwriters, there's in the background, there's always just tons of instruments, and we find some weird instrument and it inspires the next song that's being created.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's wonderful. So this instrument that was like a saxophone, was it actually a Peruvian instrument?
It's like, it looks like a saxophone, but it plugs into the computer. So you play and it sounds like an orchestra.
Ooh, that's like a
So
MIDI
things like,
instrument. Yeah,
yep.
that's cool. It's one of the fascinating challenges I feel that musicians in really in younger generations, there's this expectation now that you're able to create the whole sound just from one person because we have amazing programs like Logic or
Yeah,
Pro
yeah.
Tools, and then we have a keyboard or something like that that can input and
It's
have any
true.
sound. But it's hard to expect an individual, I think, to be able to design everything themselves, and you don't have that collaboration with other creative minds. And additionally, if you're trying to learn everything, you tend to not be as specialized in one thing. So you end up not having virtuosity. And I think a lot of
True.
musicians that are trying to do absolutely everything.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, I think it's one of the big complications for musicians in today's world. But then you have some that are just out there and incredible in so many different ways and really virtuosic, but maybe in one thing, and then they get general knowledge in others.
Yeah. There are ridiculously amazing musicians around, constantly shining the light on the world. Jacob Collier. I
Oh, I
don't know
was
if
just
you,
thinking about him.
yeah, it happened that I saw a video of him maybe 2 years ago, and I went, oh, hallelujah. A great man, a great musician, a great artist, and he extraordinary.
There are a couple different clips of his I've purposely not watched because I wanted to do a first time analysis on the channel, but then I watched a couple of the other ones to get a sense of who he was and was just really impressed. And I know he's up for some Grammys as well with
Yeah,
this
yeah,
current cycle. I think it says a lot. Seems pretty
yeah.
brilliant.
He conducts the audience to sing. He gets them to sing, and it's just like, Jacob, hallelujah.
I love that. And that was actually one of the leftover questions I'd had for you, which was, are there any contemporary artists that you really admire? So Jacob is here.
Yeah,
Let's see.
because he goes very deep. He can actually, and he's written some beautiful orchestrated music.
Awesome. I have a question from Robert Henderson here. What changes in the music industry were you least prepared for? I love that question.
Wow.
Right? Oh,
Well, MTV,
Oh, it's a good answer.
Yeah, because MTV came and we were actually right there at the front of it. You couldn't appreciate MTV till you were actually in America. It was an American-based company. And all of a sudden, they have so much music on the TV shows and stuff. And we were lucky enough to have a hit record that time, which was Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Oh,
And
nice.
all of a sudden, no matter where you go, it was being played by somebody, or it was on TV, or it was like a little bit like being on a merry-go-round, because everywhere you went, people would come and say, "Oh, John, you're famous now." I say, "Yeah."
Wow. And both the rise and the fall of it, I feel like it really then went down. It felt like, from my perspective, I wasn't there for that, but it feels like when I look back that it declined rather quickly. But then you
Yeah.
have things like YouTube that went up really fast and
Oh,
shifted
yeah.
everything, or even Spotify and all of these problems that are happening with that now as well. There's just certain platforms where people consume music that have risen and fallen very rapidly and shifted entirely how people experience the things that you create.
It's true. When MTV got so big, we would spend $100,000 making a video for MTV, and they'd send it back and say, "No, we don't need it now."
Whoa.
Wait a minute, we just spent 100 grand making a. What's going on now? But you get that. That's when we started replaying the '70s music, the long form pieces, and reinventing. Yes, That's basically what I just went through with the Bankies, was to reinvent my understanding of Yes. It's a very simple format. It's a song, music, music, song, song, music, 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 and you stick it all together correctly, and it works.
Maybe the key is how to stick it together correctly.
Oh yeah, you got to practice.
Oh, that's funny. Um, I think it's amazing to hear how you think it's simple, and yet so many other people look at it and we think, wow, this is intricate and complex. I hear, I've heard different transitions into, I love to think of it as like chapters in a journey with progressive music. And
Yeah,
sometimes the transitions are made and I'll say that works. I'm still not exactly sure why it works. I love that
true.
mystery though.
Yeah. Well,
Just stick it together correctly.
it's one of those things. It's kind of not haphazard, but you create in the order to go somewhere. And I started writing soon as I saw Jacob Collier. I started writing what I call the opus. Opus. I was going to call it the opus opus, but I've renamed it opus opus, and it's 5 hours long.
Ooh.
And I stuck it together about a week ago, thinking, well, it still doesn't work. But it's fun that I have a guy who lives in Ireland. He's called Mickey Byrne, and he's a video guy. Everything I've ever done, he makes a video on it, which helps. So at least if I'm creating something, I send it to him, and he started using AI now to send back visuals, and I say, well, that's why he sent me this. Oh, you can't see it. It helps to know that not only you have music, and then you have lyrical content, and then you have visual content, which is a far cry from the '70s and the '60s. It's the
Yeah.
idea that you should be able to visualize music in some way and make it normal. Like when people started buying CDs, it was just the music. And now you put a CD on and you got a screen, you got visualization. So in some ways, it's a storytelling process. And I've started 3 stories I've been working on. And it's music, but a story that's very kind of deep and everything. And now we're giving it to AI, and they're sending back all the images. And it's quite remarkable.
interesting.
quite remarkable how it works, you know.
That's one of my favorite examples of artists using AI in a sort of partnership because when I see it being used well, it's used to inspire and it's used to create more ideas, to generate more creativity from
Yeah,
everybody involved. So I think that's really a beautiful use of AI.
yeah, you know, as you say, in the right hands, because people are going to use it to go make war machines and things like that, of course.
Yeah.
Well, that can go, and AI can say, sorry, go this way. The higher energy comes through. You have to think along those lines. It's like the
Yeah.
work we do is for our children and our children's children. And then you realize that everything's, these days especially, there's a certain amount of hopefulness, shall we say, the need for awareness of what's going on around us and knowing that humans are not that good at it. So there's a healing, the healing experience is the healing takes time, as we know.
I also just think it's pretty funny that we think we're so good at so many things, but we see we really see over time how we've evolved or gotten better, or just you just watch a kid learn how to get better at something. You can always be a lot better. We don't know how bad we are at everything right now.
True, true. It's
Pretty amazing.
well, the weather depicts a lot of things. The weather that surrounds us all on the planet and everything it's a remarkable energy that the sun and one of the songs on the new album that I've just done is all to do with living in Eden again, you know, that we should cultivate the earth as Eden, the
Appreciate it.
original, you know, it's like the idea of heaven on earth. Heaven on earth, that's it. Heaven on earth, please, thank you very much. I think a lot of people want that very, very sincerely.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. Um, but let's see. There's one last question I have here from a patron, and then just a couple last ones from me to you. This is from Quirky Uncle Dave, which I love. That's his name, Quirky Uncle Dave. One of my favorite songs from the past couple of years is Space Famous by Toe Hider. You are literally space famous in the sense that an asteroid was named in your honor a few years back. It seems appropriate since you've incorporated themes of space and science fiction into some of your solo works. Do these continue to be a source of inspiration for you today?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, yeah. It's well, my old friend keyboard player Rick Wakeman used to say Jon Anderson is the only guy he knows who's trying to save this world by living on another one.
That's a good quote. I like that quote.
I say, yeah. It's remarkable to even try to think how you relate to other people. Obviously, people who love the music I've done and come to see our shows, you can sense who they are. There's a sensibility about being there, listening to the music that we're going. The tour that we're going to do is it's 2 hours long, but it's got
Wow.
songs from the 70s through the 80s, through the 90s, even through this new album. And you feel like I'm on a journey, and there's a lot of people out there on the same journey of, you know, enlightenment. A word we can flippantly use and say, well, enlightenment, what the hell is that, you know? But well, it's available to it's available to anybody who's interested. You know, enlightenment is very, very strong in my world because that's all I think about. There's chaos over there, madness over there, enlightenment here, where I am, and that's where I am on stage with the audience. Yeah, exactly. I went to see a rehearsal of a very famous opera, Be It Out That Rhythm on a Drum. What was it? Carmen.
I was going to say Carmen after a rhythm. I was like,
Yeah, Carmen.
famous opera, lots of fantastic rhythms. Boom,
It
ba-dum.
was it was magnificent to watch these people rehearsing it and just performing it. And the orchestra was great. And I just sat there, me and Jamie, I just sat there and I love this, the whole idea of theater. So one day it's going to happen. But in a funny way, that's what I do. I go on stage with a band of musicians and screens and projection and things like that.
Yeah.
And it takes them away from where they are and puts them right where we are now, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
I
Living
think
in the moment.
I think that that a lot of concerts and big performances by rock artists or metal art, just really musicians today, they incorporate so many visual and storytelling elements that one could argue that they are essentially an evolution of theater, of opera. And in a
True.
lot of ways, I think that opera needs to borrow from some of those elements in contemporary music to continue to evolve forward with our
It's true.
audiences today.
Yeah, I agree.
Since we're talking about theaters and different places to perform, you've had such a long career and you've performed in so many big places, small places, special places. Is there a performance venue, whether it's huge or it was just you performing for yourself, right? Is there a performance venue that really sticks out as being particularly magical?
There is one event that happened. I was invited to go to Iceland and sing with this group of musicians and an orchestra. And it's available, I suppose, on YouTube. But there we were in Iceland, and I was singing YES songs because the musician who asked me to go there has a band, and he wanted us to do certain YES songs. One of them was Awaken. Now, Awaken was created in the last months of the 70s, and it was one of those pieces of music that, in a sense, we were in Switzerland recording, and it seemed to create itself. And I just had this idea that the songs were already implanted in a way, but then the middle would have to be very, very different. And I had a harp at that time. I have my harp here.
Oh,
And
yes.
I play the harp in the middle of the piece, and then it builds and builds. And it's one of the most extraordinary I cry at the end of it every time I watch it, because the orchestra and the choir and the band musicians takes your breath away. Well, my breath anyway. And I'll be performing that on the next tour. Awaken has always been like the pinnacle of what YES music was really all about, an awakening to a higher consciousness thinking. And so if anyone wants to hear that performance, it's like on YouTube.
With a group of Icelandic musicians in Iceland, right?
Right.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That is just an extraordinary country as well. And we've talked about this a few times now, but really last question is all about how to support you, especially in these upcoming projects that you have. You have a tour that's coming up. You have an album that's releasing in March that's really essentially rehashing a lot of old Yes songs in
Yeah,
live performances and recordings.
yeah,
It's amazing. I'm amazed that you're able to still really do that so well. And then, of course, you have an album that came out last November as well. That was some new solo work. So, other than seeing you on tour and buying these albums, is there any other way that people can really support the work that you're continuing to do?
again, your guess is as good as mine. Just thinking
Sure.
about the coming months, we'll probably definitely do a new album through the winter time. We're going to be performing up until September, and maybe then I've already written some new songs for another album, which would be a continuation of the first album,
You
and
will never
hopefully that
stop
that
writing.
will. Well, we hope it'll happen. You just fingers crossed everything will work out.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's always something. There's always something to be done, and I'm the guy to try it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for all of the music that you continue to create and inspire so many people.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again for taking time to do this interview today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. And
Thank
cheers.
you.
Get some tea to you. I know you have your water
Yeah,
here.
have some water.
Cheers, and I wish you all the best. And I might see you soon on that tour too.
Yeah, you got to come and see the show, please.
It depends on how baby's doing, but
Oh
we have
yeah,
penciled in. I believe it's April, it's early April that you're in Tucson. So
yeah.
penciled in as like, oh, as long as this is going okay. But I am due at the end of April. Well, so we'll see.
See what happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope everything goes really well, and thank you once again.
And the same to you. Thank you.